This is the iPhone X, Apple's 10th anniversary iPhone. The phone that is nearly as revolutionary as the first generation iPhone. Why is it revolutionary? Because Apple has decided to delete the home button. Poof, it's gone. Apple seems to have made a habit of changing entrenched conventions. Last year it was a 3.5mm jack, this year is the home button. What's next? Obviously, gone along with the home button is the Touch ID fingerprint sensing technology as well. And before I talk about the design or the display, let's take a look at the new Face ID because it's a pretty daring change. The very first time you set up the iPhone X, you're asked to look into the front camera as it scans your face. After you rotate your head twice, you're good to go. The setup process is easier than setting up the Touch ID. To answer all your doubts you might have about Face ID, 1. It works even in pitch dark. 2. It works about 90% of the time. And twins can fool the system. Apple also uses Face ID for attention awareness features. Currently, you can toggle the feature to dim the screen brightness when you're not paying attention to the display, or reduce the volume of notifications automatically when you look directly into the display. It works like a charm. All in all, Face ID is a good first attempt at reimagining the way people will unlock iPhones in the future. That said, Face ID has introduced a notch. A notch that includes a smattering of sensors and unfortunately cuts through the top half of the display. And I believe it causes one problem that I simply could not overlook. That is, the notch is a big irritant while playing games that haven't been optimized yet. In fact, in games like Guns Boom and Asphalt, the notch cuts through menu text. However, if you're watching videos, the notch disappears into peripheral vision and doesn't bother you after a while. Also interestingly, you can double tap the display in Netflix to zoom the video to fit the display. In YouTube, you have to pinch to zoom the video, which feels a little more intuitive actually. The inclusion of this notch also means that developers have to rebuild their apps to fit this new display, which incidentally has a new aspect ratio of 18:9. Most apps run in letterbox mode for now, but this should change soon once developers update it. That new 5.8-inch display uses OLED technology for the first time on an Apple iPhone. But unlike most OLED displays, the one on the iPhone X is tuned for accuracy. You do get deep blacks and nicely saturated colors, and the white balance is just spot on too. There's also the new True Tone display setting that adjusts your screen's white balance based on the surrounding light. I'm not really a fan of True Tone though. What I am a fan of is the new Super Retina display with a resolution of 1125 by 2436. And it has support for HDR10 and Dolby Vision formats as well. I can't wait for apps to use HDR in all its glory. The iPhone X itself looks and feels very polished. It uses sturdy glass on both the front and the rear. While it does look gorgeous from the front, the rear panel is generally boring. Also, if you hadn't noticed yet, the rear cameras are now placed in a vertical orientation. The absence of a home button also means that Apple has had to rethink iOS from ground up for the iPhone X. iOS 11 on the iPhone X hugely relies on gestures to get the job done. Swipe up from the lock screen after Face ID recognizes you to unlock the phone. Swipe up and hold for a second to enter multitasking. Swipe the handle at the bottom to switch between apps. Swipe from the left of the notch to show the notifications. Swipe from the right of the notch to bring up the control center. It is all pretty intuitive and doesn't take your muscle memory too much time to get adjusted. There are certain subtle software tweaks that I found along the way as well. For example, the iPhone X doesn't show all the contents of the message on the lock screen notifications unless it has identified your face. Oh, and let's not forget Apple's new Animojis. These things are as cute as a button. The front camera on the iPhone X is the one that completely changes things up, especially because you get a portrait mode with the new portrait lighting features even for selfies, where it makes the most sense. You can now take really gorgeous looking self-portraits of yourself with a blurred background. The rear telephoto camera now has a wider aperture and optical image stabilization as well. The wider aperture on telephoto lens means that it lets in slightly more light, but it is not immediately apparent when compared with the iPhone 8 Plus. All said and done, the Pixel 2 XL still takes the best low light shots. Stay tuned for an even more detailed camera comparison between the iPhone X and the Pixel 2 XL. Till then, I'll leave you with this. The iPhone X has great cameras, but the competition has caught up already. Just like the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, the iPhone 10 also comes with the new A11 Bionic chip. This chip can also do augmented reality like a champ. I tried a couple of apps, but AR, while exciting, is still in its nascent stage for me to give a full verdict on how I feel about it. Now about that 2716 mAh battery inside the iPhone 10. It lasted me 18 hours on heavy usage, which is more than sufficient for most users. But the battery life on the iPhone 8 Plus is definitely better. But I can tell you this, the iPhone 10 is blazing fast. And it better be. You're paying a lot for it anyway. I don't know if it is the new earpiece setup or just me, but calls were not as loud as the iPhone 8 Plus. On the other hand, the stereo speaker sounds louder and fuller now. That's definitely a consolation.
No, I'm a little behind on my rent, but no, I'm fine. Take care of this, please.
So, is the iPhone 10 the phone that redefines the future of smartphones? Well, maybe not all smartphones, but it definitely redefines the future of iPhones. I don't see the home button or the bezels making a comeback next year, and Apple is bound to improve the Face ID going forward. Whether you like it or not, the iPhone 10 is the new normal.